Hello students, welcome to this video tutorial on solving algebra problems with Algebra Tiles Supernode Part 2 using division. So you survived the first video, okay? That's probably the most complicated video, and that's probably one of the more complex skills that we're going to learn this year. So in part 2, we're not going to use subtraction or addition. We're going to use division to help us, okay? Now a lot of the rules are the same. The procedure is the same. So let's start. Example 4. 2x equals 6. Now, what you have to remember, and I'm sure you do, is when we have 2x, this is actually a multiplication question. This is 2 times x equals 6. So if you know that this is multiplication, you can understand why part 2 is called using division. Okay, step 1. Let's draw the question. Well, we have 2x. So you can draw these long rectangles beside each other, or you can stack them above one another. So we have 2x equals, and then we have positive 6. So pretty easy question to draw. Okay? All right, so we have 2x equals 6. So with these questions, the strategy changes a little bit. So we have two x's. So what we want to do is we want to create two separate groups. So here's what I mean. So what we're going to do is we're going to stack the two positive x's one on top of each other. Okay? And then what I want to do is I want to divide these 6 positive tiles into two separate groups. So 6 positive tiles separated into two separate groups. How many positive tiles would be in each group? Well, I hope you said 3. So let's put 3 positives up here. So they're kind of in line with this positive x. And then let's put the 3 positives in a second row below so that they're kind of in line with this positive x on this side. So to show division in a tile diagram, this is what we do. Now there are no zero models for these. So what we do is we put a circle around this one because eventually we just want to have x, a 1x being alone. So what we do is beside this, we write divide by 2. Okay? And then we show an arrow that it's being eliminated. Okay? So this is very important, this arrowhead, and this is very important here, this divide by 2. Okay? And why are we dividing by 2? Because there are two groups, because there are two x's. Okay? And then once you take this one group away, you draw what remains. So what remains is, again, we want 1x being alone, and that's what we've created. We have x equals positive 3. So a lot of students comment that this strategy is much easier than part 1 using addition or subtraction. Okay, so how do we show that algebraically? So step 1, before you even think strategy, write the question. Step 2, before you think strategy, copy the question. Okay, so let's run through our series of questions, okay? What side of the equation is the x on? Well, it's on the left-hand side, so let's focus only on the left-hand side. I want x to remain alone. So how do I do that? Well, you have to remember that this is 2 times x. So what's in the way of x being alone? Well, times 2 is in the way. So how do I get rid of a times 2? Well, we do the opposite of times 2. And the opposite of times 2 is divide by 2. Now what we do on the left-hand side, we have to do on the right-hand side. Okay? So what happens? 2 times 2 divided by 2 cancels each other out. In this case, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1x is just x. 6 divided by 2 is, pretty easy, 3. Okay? Now, let's write what remains. So on the left-hand side here, the only thing that remains is x because we got rid of this. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So this is actually an invisible 1 here, okay? But we're not going to put that in. Okay, so I'm going to just undo that. Okay, then we have the equal sign, and then what's on the right-hand side? 6 divided by 2 is 3. Finally, let's do a check. Is your tile diagram solution the same as your algebraic solution? Yes, it is. Okay, so how was that? All right, let's go on to example 5. 3x equals -9. All right, step 1, I would like you to draw the question, please. Don't worry about any grouping, just do it kind of as if you didn't know what to do. Okay, so we've got 3 long rectangles. Equals -9. We have 1, 2, 3. All right, so there's diagram 1. We simply draw the question. All right, diagram 2. So now's where we got to use some strategies here. So we're going to come up with 3 groups because there are 3 x's. So there are 3 long positive x rectangles. So let's create 3 different kind of groups here. And then we have the equal sign. All right, so we take 9 negative tiles and we're supposed to separate them into 3 groups. Well, what would that look like? Well, I think that's 3 groups of 3 negative tiles. Okay, so I only want 1 x to remain. So in this case, I have to put a circle around 2 of these groups. Okay, and I'm going to show them being taken away with an arrowhead. And you have to write here beside, we're dividing by 3. Even though we're taking 2 of the groups away, we actually took this diagram and we made 3 groups. Okay, so diagram 3, we draw what remains. What remains is a single positive x equals 3 negative tiles. Okay? All right, so how does that work algebraically? Well, step 1, we copy the question. 3x equals -9. Step 2, we copy the question and we start to think about our strategies. Okay, so the x is on the left-hand side, so let's only focus on the left-hand side. We have 3 times x. We want x to remain alone. What's in the way of x remaining alone? Well, it's times 3. Remember, 3x means 3 times x. So how do we get rid of a times 3? Well, we do the opposite. We divide by 3 on both sides. Very important that you write that on both sides. 3 divided by 3 cancels each other out because it just remains as 1. Negative 9 divided by 3 equals, hopefully you remember your integer rules, negative 3. Okay? All right, so let's draw what remains. What remains here is x, because the 3 divided by 3 canceled each other out. We have the equal sign, and then we have negative 3 on the right-hand side. Okay, so let's see, does our diagram solution match our algebraic solution? Yes, it does. X equals negative 3. Okay, this concludes this video tutorial on part 2 using division. Thanks for watching. Bye.